There's something sacred about 3 a.m. when the world is still, when the city lights seem to hum softer. You're awake, eyes open, heart racing, thoughts swirling, and maybe you've wondered, why me? Why now? What's wrong with me? But I want to offer you a different perspective. Waking up at 3 a.m. isn't a flaw. It's a signal. It's a whisper from a part of you that most people never meet. A quiet, powerful version of yourself that's trying to speak up when everything else has gone silent. Let's talk about what it really means. Waking up at 3 a.m., that moment when the world is silent, the air feels still, and darkness wraps everything like a thick curtain, can feel haunting. But for some of us, it's not anxiety or noise or a bad dream that pulls us out of sleep. It's something deeper, something more primal. It's the call of the unfinished, the whisper of purpose, that internal nudge that says, hey, we're not done yet. It's not the coffee you forgot to set for the morning or the deadline you know is approaching. It's not a to-do list item. It's something else entirely. Something that lives underneath the surface of your everyday life, under the job title, under the responsibilities, under the expectations. It's that thing you were supposed to do, the path you were supposed to take, the person you were supposed to become. Most people think of sleep as a break, a time to shut down and rest. But science tells us otherwise. The brain doesn't shut down. It doesn't even slow down that much. A study published in Science showed that our minds, even while we sleep, continue to work on our unresolved goals. That jolt at 3 a.m., the one you can't shake, is not random. It's your subconscious clocking in for the night shift, pushing through the noise, tapping you on the shoulder like a friend who can't let you forget what you said you'd do, what you meant to become. It's easy to ignore it, to roll over, to hush that voice with distractions. Netflix, social media, the hum of busyness. But here's the truth. Just because you silence something doesn't mean it's gone. Just because you push it down doesn't mean it won't rise again. Purpose is persistent. It waits in silence. And when the world quiets down, it speaks up. There's a term psychologists use, cognitive dissonance. It's the discomfort we feel when our actions don't match our values. When we know what we're meant for, but we keep saying yes to things that pull us in the opposite direction. That internal friction, that sense of something missing, isn't something to avoid. It's something to pay attention to. Because that's where the truth lives. That's where growth begins. You don't feel lost when you're on the right path. You feel lost when your soul knows you're off course. But your routine keeps marching forward like everything's fine. Years ago, a nurse named Bronnie Ware worked in palliative care. She spent time with people at the end of their lives. People no longer distracted by ambitions or expectations. And she asked them, what do you regret? The most common answer, the one that surfaced again and again, was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That's not a complaint about failure. That's not a regret about taking risks. It's a grief about the risks never taken. The songs never sung. The words never said. The dreams shelved in favor of stability. The authentic self traded for approval. Think about that. Most people don't regret what they did. They regret what they didn't do. So maybe that 3 a.m. wake-up call isn't an interruption. Maybe it's an invitation. A chance to look at your life and ask the hardest question of all. Am I being true to myself? Not am I successful? Not do people think I'm doing well? Not have I met their expectations? No. Am I living the life I know deep down I was meant to live? Most of us were raised to value certainty. Predictability. We were told to play it safe, follow the path, don't make waves, fit in, stay the course. But somewhere along the way, that course took a turn, and you felt it. Maybe you were too busy to notice. Maybe you were too afraid to admit it. But that course didn't lead you to purpose. It led you to comfort. And comfort has a way of numbing the parts of you that crave meaning. But meaning always finds a way back. That's what the 3 a.m. moment is. It's the return of meaning. It's your soul reminding you that you were built for something more than just getting by, more than just checking boxes and pleasing people. You were built for significance, for contribution, for legacy. Purpose doesn't show up like a lightning bolt. It's not a loud announcement or a perfectly timed epiphany. Sometimes it's just a quiet question in the dark, a restless heart, a nagging feeling. And it's easy to ignore those things. But if you listen closely, if you give it a moment of attention, you might discover what you've been missing. We all have unfinished business. Things we said we'd do but haven't. Versions of ourselves we glimpsed but never pursued. That business doesn't go away. It will. Not to punish you, but to remind you. That version of you you're dreaming about at night, the one who started writing the book, the one who walked away from the wrong career, the one who built something instead of settling. That version still exists, and it's not too late. The world doesn't need more people playing it safe. It needs more people who are willing to live aligned with what they believe, aligned with who they are, aligned with what they're here to contribute. Because when people live that way, they come alive. And when people come alive, they light up the world around them. You were not born to be a cog in a machine. You were not meant to spend your one life managing expectations and hiding your light. You were meant to build something only you can build, to bring something into the world that carries your fingerprints, to do something that when you're 80 you can look back on and say, that was mine, that mattered. So next time you wake up in the middle of the night, don't roll over. Don't reach for distraction. Just sit in the silence for a second. Listen to what's whispering. Ask yourself, what am I not doing that I know I should be? What am I pretending not to hear? What part of me is unfinished? Because that 3 a.m. moment, it might not be a disruption at all. It might be the most honest moment of your day, and it might just be the beginning of something extraordinary. You're not alone, even in the dark. Let's start with a truth that too many of us are too afraid to say out loud. There are nights when the world feels heavier than it should. When silence isn't peaceful, it's deafening. When the clock reads 2:47 a.m. and your mind won't slow down, you stare at the ceiling, wondering if anyone else feels this way. If anyone else wakes up in the middle of the night, not because of noise or light or discomfort, but because something deeper inside refuses to rest. Here's the thing. You are not the only one. It's easy to believe you are, because no one talks about it. No one shares Instagram stories at 3 with puffy eyes and a racing heart. No one walks into work the next day and says, I spent the night worrying if I'm enough. Instead, we show up dressed, smiling, answering emails, making decisions, as if we've all slept soundly and feel completely in control. But the truth lives beneath the surface. And that truth is this. Countless people lie awake, just like you. According to the Sleep Foundation, nearly 35% of adults regularly wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. These aren't lazy, uninspired people. These are the high performers, the dreamers, the givers, the ones shouldering the weight of vision, responsibility, love, and fear. They are business owners staring down payroll. They are parents wondering how to give their children more than they had. They are creatives, wondering if what they made will matter. They are caregivers, leaders, teachers, innovators, lovers, and fighters. Awake not because they're weak, but because they care. If you've ever been up during those hours, lost in the whirlwind of thought, know that you're in powerful company. Michelle Obama, a woman known for her grace, strength, and unshakable presence, has spoken openly about those early morning wake-ups, about lying in bed next to a sleeping Barack, her mind wrestling with her identity, her responsibilities, her motherhood, her voice. And instead of letting that unrest consume her, she did something extraordinary. She used those moments. She journaled. She reflected. She recentered. What does that tell us? It tells us that being unsettled is not a flaw. It's a signal that you're alive, that you're growing, that your soul is whispering to you in the quiet hours, when the world is still enough to listen. Too often we interpret these wake-ups as weakness, as failure to cope or turn off. But maybe they're not interruptions. Maybe they're invitations. Invitations to pause, to hear what we've been too busy to hear in the daylight. Because let's be honest, when the world is loud, we become experts at drowning out our inner voices. We scroll, we schedule, we smile. But at night when it's just us in the dark, that voice comes. It's the voice asking, am I making the right choices? Am I showing up for the people I love? Am I showing up for myself? It's uncomfortable, but it's also sacred. Those 3 a.m. moments are where the truth lives. They are the place where transformation begins. Because in that stillness, you are most real. You are unfiltered. You are raw. And it's in that rawness that your next move is born. What if instead of dreading those wakeful hours, we welcomed them? What if we saw them not as symptoms to be fixed, but as conversations to be heard? You see, great change rarely begins when we feel comfortable. It begins when we are cracked open, when we stop pretending we have all the answers, when we acknowledge that something inside us is asking for more alignment, more purpose, more honesty. And the beauty is, you are not alone in that asking. You're part of a hidden network of hearts beating in the dark. People who are learning to lean into their discomfort instead of running from it. People who are slowly realizing that anxiety is not always the enemy. It's a messenger. That fear is not always a barrier. It's a compass pointing us to where growth is needed. And that wakefulness, that restless silence, is often the birthplace of clarity.
Think of the breakthroughs that have come from sleepless nights. The businesses that were born, not from a boardroom, but from a bed where someone lay wide-eyed, finally admitting to themselves what they really wanted. The poems scribbled on crumpled napkins at 3:12 a.m. The decisions made when someone finally faced their truth and said, "This isn't working. I need to change." We glamorize hustle, but the quiet hours, those are where the soul hustles. That's where resolve is tested, values are defined, and courage is summoned. And let's be honest, courage isn't about having no fear. It's about walking forward in spite of fear. It's waking up in the dark, feeling the weight of the unknown, and still choosing to breathe deeply and stay with yourself. That takes bravery. That takes strength. If you're there now, if you've had one of those nights recently, where the silence screamed and your thoughts ran wild, know this: you're not broken. You're not behind. You're not weak. You're human, and you're on the edge of something important. Because what wakes you up is a sign of what matters to you. Maybe it's your children. Maybe it's your calling. Maybe it's your past still asking to be healed. Maybe it's your future trying to get your attention. Whatever it is, it's worth listening to. Don't numb it. Don't rush it. Don't shame it. Welcome it. Welcome the ache of becoming. Because in those dark moments, where you feel most alone, you are often closest to your truth. And the more you meet yourself there with compassion, instead of judgment, the more powerful you become. Not the kind of power that shouts or dominates, but the kind that stands tall and still and unwavering. So the next time you find yourself awake in the middle of the night, don't panic. Don't reach for distraction. Sit up, breathe, listen. There is wisdom in the quiet, and there are millions of others, just like you, sitting in their own dark rooms, listening too. We are not alone. Not now. Not ever. Even in the dark, we are surrounded by unspoken solidarity, a quiet force that connects us across time zones and cities and lives. And that force is what makes us strong.
At 3 a.m., the world is silent. The lights are dim. The seconds have slowed. And for a rare moment, everything seems to hold its breath. It's in this space, this sacred pause, that something remarkable happens. Not the noise of ambition, not the chaos of multitasking, but something deeper, something real. We live in a culture that celebrates the hustle. We praise the early risers who are already replying to emails before sunrise and admire the night owls still grinding past midnight. We glorify the constant motion, but motion without meaning is just noise. Productivity for the sake of itself is just movement, not progress. Somewhere along the line, we became addicted to velocity, believing that faster meant better, that busier meant more valuable. But there's a quiet rebellion happening in the stillness of 3 a.m. That pause you feel, that's not a failure of your body to sleep. That's not a sign you're broken or anxious or behind. That pause is a gift, an invitation. It's the moment the universe leans in and says, listen, there's wisdom in those dark hours, not the kind you read in a book or hear in a podcast, but the kind that bubbles up from your soul when everything else has gone quiet. In the rush of the day, we drown in information. But in the stillness of night, we rediscover insight. We've been taught to fear the wake-up, to immediately fix, to numb it with a screen, to chase away with melatonin, or to label it as a problem to be solved. But what if it isn't a problem at all? What if it's your body or soul trying to speak to you in the only moment it knows you'll actually listen? What if we stopped fearing those moments and started embracing them? Imagine what could happen if instead of reaching for your phone, you reached for a notebook. If, instead of cursing the stillness, you leaned into it. Let your thoughts spill out, raw and unedited. Let your fears whisper their names. Let your dreams speak a little louder. That's not wasted time. That's sacred time. That's when your truest self gets a voice. The world is filled with people running from themselves, constantly distracting, constantly avoiding. But peace doesn't come from escaping. It comes from facing. And the pause, the 3 a.m. pause, is the doorway to that peace. Science backs it. Neuroscientists have found that our brains are most creative when we're relaxed. Not when we're grinding, not when we're locked into a to-do list, but when we're wandering, when we're allowing, when we're pausing. Some of the greatest ideas in human history didn't come in boardrooms or strategy sessions. They came in dreams, in showers, in walks through the woods. In 3 a.m., awakening. Those unguarded moments are when our subconscious whispers the things our conscious mind is too loud to hear. It's not about being lazy. It's about being brave. Brave enough to stop. Brave enough to feel. Brave enough to allow the messiness of your mind to rise without judgment. That's not a breakdown. That's a breakthrough.
We need to stop worshiping the grind and start honoring the gap. The pause isn't empty. It's fertile. It's where reflection is born, where meaning finds shape, where your purpose has space to breathe. In a world that's always demanding you to do more, the bravest thing you can do might be to do nothing, just for a moment, just long enough to remember who you are underneath the noise. Because here's the truth. Productivity will fill your pockets, but presence will fill your soul. And the people who change the world, they don't just work harder. They feel deeper. They reflect longer. They tap into something beyond themselves. And that something often arrives in moments of stillness. That's where you hear the quiet nudge telling you to start that business, or call your mother, or leave that job that's killing your spirit. That's where you remember the kind of person you promised yourself you'd be. You don't need more hours in the day. You need more awareness in the ones you already have. So the next time you wake up in the middle of the night, don't rush to silence it. Don't shove it away like a burden. Sit with it. Ask what it wants to tell you. Open your notebook. Write the truth you've been avoiding. Let the vulnerability leak out onto the page. Let the foggy idea take its first breath. That 3 a.m. version of you, unguarded, uncertain and raw, is often the most honest version you've got. You might find pain there. You might find fear. But you'll also find clarity. You'll find a still, small voice, pointing you in a direction you've been too busy to consider. And you'll remember you are not just a machine, built for output. You are a human being with depth, complexity, and intuition. You don't just need the pause you were made for. The pause reminds you that you're alive, that you're feeling, that you're real. It's not glamorous. It won't trend. But in that pause, you will find the seeds of something extraordinary. You just have to be still enough and brave enough to plant them. Let's be honest, sometimes feels like the loneliest, heaviest hour in existence. It's when the world is dark, quiet, and still. But your mind is anything but. It spins, it spirals, it screams. At that hour, doubts creep in like shadows slipping through a crack in the door. You are not fighting dragon. You're battling deadlines, regrets, what ifs, and worst case scenarios. It's a kind of mental storm that knows no mercy. And in that moment, the weight of your own thoughts can feel unbearable. But what if that pressure, that chaos, wasn't a flaw in your system but a signal? See, we've been conditioned to run from discomfort, to quiet anxiety, to numb it. But what if anxiety isn't the enemy? What if it's the alarm bell of purpose? What if the reason you feel so restless, so wired, so on edge, is because there's something within you that's waking up, not breaking down? Anxiety and awakening wear similar clothes. Both jolt you awake. Both grip your heart. Both make you question everything. But only one carries the seeds of transformation. Your anxiety doesn't show up for things that don't matter. You don't stay up worrying about someone else's dream. You don't feel paralyzed about someone else's future. You feel it for yours. You feel it because you care deeply. And that's not weakness. That's proof of life. I want to tell you about Jeff. Jeff used to wake up at 3:15 every single morning. Not just once in a while. Every single night. At first he tried all the things. Meditation apps, herbal teas, therapy, even sleeping pills. But no matter what, 3:15 became this strange appointment with something he couldn't name. And with every passing night, it started to feel less like insomnia and more like a summons. Jeff had a steady job. A good job. By most standards. It paid the bills, provided benefits, gave him structure. But it didn't light him up. It didn't make him feel alive. He felt like a shadow in his own life. That 3:15 hour. It wasn't about stress. It was about a signal. A moment that kept tapping him on the shoulder. Whispering, you were made for more than this. One night, instead of fighting the wake-up, Jeff got out of bed. He grabbed a pen and notebook, sat at the kitchen table, and started sketching ideas. Just thoughts. Really, questions, fragments, concepts for a wellness space, ideas about purpose and healing, and human connection. He didn't know it then, but those scribbles were blueprints for a new future. He kept doing it, night after night, and eventually the ideas became clearer. The vision came into focus. 2 years later, he left his job, poured himself into his dream, and opened a wellness retreat center. He named it 315, Rising. That number, once a symbol of his anxiety, became a badge of his awakening. What used to torment him now gives hope to others. His transformation started not with confidence, but with restlessness. Not with clarity, but with a question. And isn't that how most great changes begin? The moments that shake us are often the moments that shape us. When life cracks us open, it gives light away, and we are so quick to label our pain as pathology. But what if the things that make us feel unstable are the very things that make us human? The ache in your chest, the weight on your shoulders, the burning questions you can't silence. These aren't problems to fix. They're messages to hear. They're invitations to rise. The truth is, anxiety and awakening aren't opposites. They're partners. One is the knock. The other is the door. The mistake we make is thinking that feeling unsettled means we're broken. But sometimes it means we're growing. Think about the most meaningful shifts in your life. Did they come in times of comfort? Or did they arrive in the chaos when things didn't make sense? When you felt like you were falling apart? When you were forced to rethink everything? We live in a world that prizes certainty, but real change comes from curiosity. And that curiosity often begins when our current life no longer fits who we're becoming. There's this voice inside all of us. It starts as a whisper. At first it's easy to ignore. We're too busy, too tired, too afraid. But that voice doesn't go away. It grows louder. Sometimes it shows up as tension in your body. Sometimes as frustration. Sometimes as sleepless nights. But always with one message. Pay attention. And if you sit with that discomfort instead of running from it, you'll find something deeper underneath. Not panic, not pathology, but passion. Your anxiety isn't a malfunction. It's a compass. It points to what matters. It marks the space between your current self and your future potential. It's your soul trying to get your attention. You don't have to be fearless to follow it. You just have to be willing. Willing to listen. Willing to explore. Willing to believe that your restless mind is trying to wake up your sleeping courage. That 3 a.m. dread isn't the end of the road. It might just be the starting line. There's a reason your heart races when you think about change. It's not just fear. It's possibility dressed in adrenaline. There's a reason your thoughts keep circling the same dream, the same idea, the same desire. That's not coincidence. That's calling. We are so much more than what we pretend to be during the day. Underneath the polite smiles, the to-do lists, the email replies, there are wild, untamed hopes. There are untold stories. There are visions you haven't dared to speak aloud. That's what anxiety often protects. It guards the door to your truth. So the next time you wake up in the middle of the night, instead of fighting it, try asking, what is this trying to tell me? What if the thing that feels like a curse is really a calling? Somewhere inside you, something is rising. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know how the story ends, but you do need to trust that the feeling you're running from might be the very thing trying to set you free. Jeff didn't know where those 3:15 wake-ups would lead, but he followed the pull. He showed up again and again for the quiet voice and eventually that voice gave him a vision that changed his life. You have a 3:15 moment too. It might not come at night. It might come in traffic, or during a meeting, or while folding laundry. But it's there. That flicker of unrest. That inner nudge. That sacred discomfort. Don't push it away in. Because sometimes the thing you fear most at 3 a.m. is actually your soul saying, it's time. Most people don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. In fact, everything about that hour seems unnatural. It's dark. It's quiet. The rest of the world is asleep, and all you can hear is the soft hum of appliances. Or maybe the racing thoughts inside your head. You might ask yourself, why am I awake right now? And that's fair. It's easy, almost instinctive to interpret these moments as disruptions, as punishment, as evidence that something is wrong. But what if these moments are not signs that you're broken, but signals that you're being built? You see, we've been taught to believe that life happens on a predictable schedule, that transformation follows a timeline, that growth waits for daylight. We expect epiphanies to come during conferences, in team meetings, or after coffee with a mentor. We assume breakthroughs are marked on the calendar, like a performance review, a birthday, or a graduation date. But life doesn't honor the same schedule we do. Growth comes when it's ready. Sometimes it shows up in a whisper before dawn, not to disturb your peace, but to deliver your purpose. There is something sacred about those early morning hours. There is no audience, no performance, no pretense, just you and the silence. And in that stillness, something real begins to rise. The world may not see it yet, but you feel it. That tension, that calling, that pressure that makes you uncomfortable but refuses to let you go. That's not punishment. That's preparation. You're not being buried. You're being planted. You are in the process of becoming. But becoming is messy. Becoming doesn't come with applause. It comes with aching, with doubt, with long nights that stretch into longer mornings. The lie we've bought into is that being uncomfortable is a problem, a red flag, a reason to stop. But discomfort is often the birthplace of destiny, not the enemy of it. Think of the blacksmith's forge. To shape metal into something strong, it must first pass through fire. Then it's hammered, again and again, not to destroy it, but to define it. That's what these hard moments are doing to you. They are shaping you with intention. Every challenge, every setback, every lonely moment, each is a blow that molds your resilience, your character, your voice. The hammer isn't punishing the blade. It's giving it an edge. Let's talk about the Navy SEALs for a moment. They have a saying, embrace the and it's not just a mantra. It's a mindset. Because they know that real growth rarely feels like progress. It feels like exhaustion, like frustration, like putting one foot in front of the other, when every cell in your body is screaming for you to stop. They train in the freezing cold, in the heat, in the mud, in the silence, because they understand that greatness is not a moment you arrive at. It's a series of moments you endure. And here's the powerful part. You don't need to be fixed. You are not a broken version of your future self. You're an unfinished version. And unfinished doesn't mean unworthy. It means you're in motion. It means you're alive. The problem isn't the pain. It's the meaning we attach to it. We assume pain means we're doing something wrong. But what if it's confirmation that you're doing something right? Every time you face the silence, and don't run from it, you build trust with yourself. You show yourself that you can be still, that you can be strong, that you don't need applause or permission to keep going. You're learning that your strength isn't in how loud you can be. It's in how rooted you can become when no one is watching. We all want clarity. We pray for direction. We crave purpose. But purpose doesn't show up on a silver platter. It often arrives wrapped in frustration, in failure, in fatigue, not to discourage you, but to test your capacity, not to make you question your worth, but to build your awareness of it. Life rarely gives us what we want when we want it, but it always gives us what we need for the next step, even if that step starts at 3 a.m. And I want to tell you something that might surprise you. The people who make the biggest difference in the world, the innovators, the leaders, the warriors, they all went through a season where it felt like no one understood them, where they woke up in the middle of the night with fears they couldn't explain, where they felt like giving up more times than they admitted. But they didn't give up. They leaned in. They learned to sit with the pain long enough to hear what it had to say. Because sometimes pain isn't just pain. It's information. It's instruction. It's the universe asking, are you ready to grow now? You are not the only one waking up in the dark, wondering if this all means something. But the people who trust that their pain has a purpose, those are the people who emerge from the fire, refined, not reduced, transformed, not destroyed. You see, you're not falling apart. You're falling into place. The struggle you're facing is not a detour. It's the path. The pressure you feel is not here to crush you. It's here to call you to the next level, to your highest potential. And it won't wait for the sun to rise to get your attention. It shows up when it needs to, because it knows you're capable of more than comfort. When you feel like you're being tested, remember, you are, but not so you can prove your worth to the world. You're being tested so you can discover it for yourself. You're being given a chance to meet the strongest version of who you are. And she's not found in ease. She's not built in applause. That version of you is forged in the fire of quiet moments, private battles, and uncelebrated victories. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m., don't rush to get back to sleep. Don't rush to numb it, to silence it, to label it a burden. Sit with it. Listen. Feel what's rising. Because maybe, just maybe, that's not your anxiety waking you up. That's your calling. That's your future self. Knocking, saying, we've got work to do. And that version of you, the one who doesn't quit, doesn't crumble, doesn't compromise. That version is already inside of you. She's just waiting to be revealed. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. And the process might not be easy, but the outcome, it's worth everything. So to those who wake up at 3 a.m., I say this. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not lost. You are listening. You are not cursed. You are called. The next time your eyes open to the dark, don't be afraid. Sit up. Breathe deep. Say thank you. Because something inside you refuses to sleep on your potential. And that is a beautiful kind of wake-up call. Would you like a shorter version for social media? Or a visual script outline for a YouTube video?